The Buccaneers and Commanders kick off the NFL season this Sunday, where we'll see the debut of a rookie quarterback for one side and a new look offense for the other. That and more on today's episodes of Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen or view every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarko, the host of Locked On Bucks at @JYarko_Bucks, reunited with my friend David Harrison on Twitter at DHarrison82. And Locked On Bucks, Locked On Commanders here with you 5 days a week, every Monday through Friday. This episode of Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play 5. David, welcome back to Locked On Bucks. The Locked On Bucks listeners have been pining for this moment since the announcement of the schedule. They are pumped that you are here.
I'm pumped. I mean, I've been pretty excited. Like, this was, when the schedule came out, I mean, we were talking back and forth before it, and we heard the rumors. We're like, oh man, rumors are Bucks Commanders week 1, and I was like, oh man, like that'd be legit. And here we are, week 1 of the 2024 NFL season. And I was telling you, like, the last game episode for a Buccaneers game, I was here. Now, first crossover of the new season, I'm here. However, I do see that you changed the intro music and the intro video since I left, so I'm highly offended.
That was a network decision. They just asked me to pick the music.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's like changing the keys when you break up with somebody. Like, why you gotta do that, bro?
Because we broke up. I don't want you coming in my house anymore. No, you're always welcome here. But it's kind of like starting the crossovers off with the Super Bowl. I have nothing to look forward to the rest of the season. We are starting with the pinnacle, but Liam Cohen headlines the Buccaneers offense and what each of these teams need to accomplish in order to start their season off with the win. That is coming up in a little bit. But David, let's start with the visiting team, the Washington Commanders. Lots of changes for these Commanders over the offseason. But what is the biggest story for Washington on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, it's clearly Jayden Daniels, right? The number 2 overall pick, the new franchise quarterback. Look, Dan Quinn says we're not putting a cape on him. We're not asking him to wear a cape. He doesn't have to come out here and carry the entire team on his shoulders. He himself, Jayden himself, in a recent press conference talked about, he's not the savior. Like, a lot of fans look at him that way and want him to be the savior, but he doesn't look at himself that way. There's 11 dudes on the field, and what needs to happen is those 11 Washington Commanders offensive players need to be on the same page, operating on the same wavelength, and doing as much as they can to try to beat a very talented Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and one that, Todd Bowles is known for his blitz packages. Jayden Daniels has acknowledged it. Dan Quinn has acknowledged it. Sam Cosmi has acknowledged it. All Commanders players are trying to be really, really complimentary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass rush, because they do not want to make any of those guys upset and make them, just drive a little bit harder. So, yeah, everybody knows. I think the way that Sam Cosmi put it today when we talked to him, the offensive lineman, is we're preparing for a fist fight. It's going to be a fist fight down there, and it's going to be a fist fight that lasts 60 minutes. So they know that they've got quite the task ahead of them, but they're all really excited. At the end of the day, they're all really excited about the work they put in. They're really excited to see, just what this is all going to become, because to a man, they all feel like they have a lot of potential on the roster and on the offense specifically. So it's going to be really interesting, because I think it's quite the test, for a young team, for a newly formed team, and for Kliff Kingsbury. The last time he was on an NFL field in a regular season game, things weren't going very well for him. He ends up overseas for a little while. Then he ends up in California with USC for a year. Now he's back in the NFL. He's got Brian Johnson, who was with the Eagles last year. He's got Anthony Lynn, who's had head coach experience, and they're all kind of melting this offense together. So it's not going to be a quote unquote Kliff Kingsbury offense per se, but it is Kliff Kingsbury at the controls. So obviously his personality is going to stamp it. So it's going to be really interesting just to see how it all goes. But at the end of the day, every storyline, like how well the offensive line does, how well the receivers do, the running backs, Kliff Kingsbury, It's all going to come right back. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's all going to point right back to Jayden Daniels. So that's clearly the main focus.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about Jayden Daniels on Locked On Bucks leading up to this game, as we should. You know, he's an incredible talent. I'm excited to watch him play his first NFL game. I'm excited to follow his career. I just, hope that the debut isn't reminiscent of the last time Washington selected a Heisman winning quarterback number 2 overall, and then the Commanders played on the road against an NFC South opponent, and RG3 absolutely lit them up. Thinking about a lot of different coaches, you got a new head coach there in Washington running the defense, lots of new faces there. What's the biggest story on the defensive side of the ball besides how awesome Johnny Newton is?
Johnny Newton, listen, we've only seen Johnny Newton practice twice. Now, he did practice on Wednesday, to be fair, but as you know, regular season practices, we don't get to see everything. So in training camp, we only got to see him practice twice. Those practices, incredibly impressive. Wow. Like, the dude is so fast. And I mean, he was literally just coming back from his second foot surgery of the calendar year, and he was the fastest dude off the line of scrimmage. But there is a very good chance that he's not going to play this weekend. In fact, I actually don't expect him to play this weekend. Maybe I'm just tempering my own expectations because I don't want to be heartbroken. But we'll see what the final injury report says on Friday. But that's just kind of my expectation. But on the defense, Johnny Newton certainly is part of that because the pass rush is the biggest story for this Washington Commanders defense. They kept John Allen, they kept Daron Payne. John Allen was the subject of a lot of trade speculation and ideas during the offseason, but he's still with the team. He says he's rejuvenated, happy to be in Washington still. He's from the area, so you have to feel like he wants to win with his hometown team. Daron Payne is just always ready to go out there and ball, but they brought in 2 new edges. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. comes with Dan Quinn and new defensive coordinator Joe Wade Jr. from the Dallas Cowboys. And Dorrance Armstrong Jr. is someone who's been incredibly impressive because if you look at like his sacks per snap rate, the best on the Dallas Cowboys defense over the time that he was with the Cowboys. The question mark is when you're doing it full time and when you're the regular now, does that production still stand out? Because now teams are going to game plan against you. Now you're going to exert more energy, right, on a down-to-down basis. So that's a big question. On the other side, you got Clelin Ferrell, who's always been kind of a run fit, kind of stopgap type of guy. So if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're probably like, okay, we're probably just not going to run to your side. We'll go to the other side, try to take advantage of the speed and the aggression on that side of the ball. And then Jamin Davis, first-round draft pick, who's been being used as an off-ball linebacker, they converted him to an edge. So he's kind of like their Micah Parsons in this defense. So we'll see how he fits into that whole thing. And then Frankie Louvu, the off-ball linebacker that Bucs fans know and love from his days with the Carolina Panthers, is here now, and he's expected to be a big influence on that as well. And then, of course, you've always got the second-level safety, the cornerback blitz, and all that stuff that these aggressive D coordinators like to do. Very familiar with that in Tampa Bay because of Todd Bowles. Joe Wade Jr. is going to run a very similar type of system, I think, which actually I think benefits the Buccaneers offense. You've been practicing against a highly aggressive blitz-heavy defense, so there's not going to be a lot of surprises there. And I think Baker Mayfield embraces the opportunity to spit in the face of that type of a fan. So, I think there's going to be a lot of fun out there. But at the end of the day, they're kind of relying on that front to help conceal some of the concerns that we have, not they, but we on the outside have of their secondary because they're returning two. If you want to get technical, call Quan Martin a starter from last year's secondary because he did get starts towards the end of the season at the free safety position. If you want to do that, you're returning 3 of the 5 starters from the worst secondary in the NFL last year. That's not usually a good sign. So you need that pass rush to be effective, get home, upset Baker Mayfield. If you can shake that bake, I don't know, I just came up with that. Then maybe that'll help things on the back end.
That's the kind of stuff we've missed here over at Locked On Bucs, David. That is the heat that you brought that I just can't replicate. But the home team has a couple of debuts of their own to talk about. That is coming up next here on a Crossover Thursday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. It's super simple to play. You just pick more or less than a player's stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's not you against thousands of other fantasy players and sharks, just you against the numbers. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, all lowercase, on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders your first listen review every single day. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen on the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. David, we are going to flip things over to the home team now, and we're going to talk about the offense first. Look, Jayden Daniels, that is a marquee debut for an NFL franchise this weekend. The Bucs have their own big debut and a couple of others to sprinkle in, but it's offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. Came from the Sean McVay tree, dominated at the University of Kentucky, giving them one of their all-time greatest offenses. And now you add in a guy like Graham Barton, who the Bucs took in the first round, who has to go up against Allen and Payne in the trenches. And I've said a couple of times on my show, there's nobody better suited or better prepared than Graham Barton is to go against this Washington Commanders front, because he has to go against Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea every single day in practice. So he's probably a little more suited than most rookie centers would be going up against that incredible front for the Washington Commanders. But beyond that, Liam Cohen putting the power of the offense back in the hands of the players. He's going to rely a lot on Baker Mayfield to put this offense in the right play. He's going to rely on the leadership of Tristan Wirfs and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to put them in the right play. He talked about it in his introductory press conference. He can call plays. The players have to go out and execute them. So what do they feel they can best execute against these opposing defenses? That's going to be a huge change from last year, where Dave Canales, lots of ebbs and flows as to whether or not he was actually really good at being an offensive coordinator, or he was so stubborn that it was a detriment to the offense. And then something else that's really going to change the shape of this Bucs offense under Liam Cohen is Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving, the rookie wide receiver out of Washington, the rookie running back out of Oregon. Something you know all too well, David, that the Bucs sorely lacked last year was a legitimate wide receiver 3 to complement Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It was supposed to be Russell Gage. He was out for the year. He was hurt. Now, Jalen McMillan is coming in here, and he's going to be a guy that takes some of the attention and some of the pressure off of Mike and Chris, while Bucky Irving can do everything Rachaad White can do. Rachaad White, criminally underrated. He was, one of the best running backs in the NFL in all-purpose yards. The Bucs had the worst rushing offense in the NFL, but Rachaad nearly had 1,000 yards by himself because he had to do it by himself. So Bucky can run, he can catch, he can pick up blitzes, and all of this is perfectly suited for the offense that Liam Cohen wants to run, that he came to Tampa to run with Baker Mayfield at the helm. So there's lots of changes. I know Dan Quinn has seen these Buccaneers players numerous times throughout his career, but this is a very different type of offense than he has seen in Tampa in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I think this might be the most dynamic Buccaneers, from a potential standpoint. Obviously, we have to see how Liam Cohen is what I said, puts it all together, and how he and Baker Mayfield re-gel together following their days in Los Angeles. But I think when you just look at the potential and the explosive potential of this team overall, I think it's the most dynamic roster on offense that I've seen in my days of writing about or talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And honestly, what really stands out here. So you have a relatively young offensive line, a somewhat inexperienced offensive line outside of Tristan Wirfs. And that's obviously something that the Washington Commanders are going to try to take advantage of. You have a fairly similar situation on the flip side of the ball for Todd Bowles to try to take advantage of as well. But the thing that you can't practice the most in training camp and preseason is the thing that worries me the most about this team, because we know Mike Evans is going to bring his future Hall of Fame ability. Chris Godwin is going to have his ability. Jalen McMillan is someone that Coach Quinn mentioned specifically, so they're ready to face it. Like, they know that he's coming, right? Nobody's going to be surprised by that. But and Rashad White, same thing. Buck Aaron, like, if this defense doesn't tackle, if the Commanders' defense doesn't tackle this Buccaneers offense, there are going to be chunk plays all over the field on Sunday, because they've got too many guys that can just eat you alive if you don't bring them down with that first guy. Either bring them down or hold them till the cavalry arrives. But every time a first defender misses a Buccaneers ball carrier, whether it be a catch or a carry, there is going to be the potential for an explosive play, because that's just who they have on this roster, and that is, we all know that's a poison pill for any defense.
Yeah, and there were quite a few times throughout the preseason where Bucky Irving was about this close to breaking a tackle and then he was going to the house. He is a one cut, two step, full speed guy, and if that initial tackle misses, that guy's going to go a real long way.
Yeah.
All right, I want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball because there are some questions on this Buccaneers defense, but I don't think there are any more pressing than the edge rush. And it's a point that I've hammered home quite a bit throughout the offseason leading up to this point. But no Shaq Barrett. He's gone, even though he told Kay Adams that he would come back and play for the Bucs if they wanted him. You're pinning a lot of your ability to get pressure on the quarterback from the edges on a second year guy that didn't play a full season. He still led the team in sacks with 7.5, but he accumulated those 7.5 sacks in a total of 5 games. So he had some really, really good games, but now he is your top edge rusher, and it comes in waves, and it's a little nerve-wracking. So Yaya Diaby, he's had a lot of hype from local media, from national media, from all sorts of places, but he's the anchor. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, he is not the person that they thought they were drafting in the first round. Chris Braswell, he's a rookie, second round pick out of Alabama, completely unproven, completely untested. You have Anthony Nelson, who kind of is what he is at this point. He's going to get you a couple sacks. He's going to be a decent rotational player. Then you have Marquise Watts and Jose Ramirez, both undrafted players, both dealt with injury last year, both getting an opportunity, but again, unproven. So a Todd Bowles defense that does not have sound, feared edge rushers could be a problem, especially against somebody like Jayden Daniels, who can get outside of the pocket, can run, can make plays with his legs. And these edge rushers are going to have a real tough time. They have to set the tone. They have to be able to open the rest of Todd Bowles' defense. And if they're not getting the job done, similar to what we saw with the Buccaneers for most of the year last year, it's going to be a real long day for that defense against this Commanders offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the flip side of this conversation. While the Buccaneers offense is maybe the most dynamic that I remember seeing in my time covering this team, or writing and talking about this team, I think on the defensive side, especially since Todd Bowles has been here, this might be the least amount of toys he's had to play with, right? Like, we know, like, I always talk to people about, I was actually just talking to somebody in the Commander's staff today about the first time I saw Todd Bowles line a safety up over the center. And I was just like, what are you doing? And it worked. I was like, oh, that's what you're doing. That's why you're there and I'm here. Todd Bowles loves to play these games, but you're right, man. And against a rookie quarterback, you want to play as many games as you can. You want to be as chaotic as you can, and you want to get as much pressure as you can. But you have to be a little bit concerned. Like Yaya Diaby, I love Yaya just as much as anybody else does, but it's too early in his career to be like, you're the dude. You know what I mean? Like, you're the guy, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, you said it. KJ Britt, I love KJ. James, I love KJ. We had KJ on Locked On Bucks when I was still on the show. He's not as dynamic a pass rusher as Devin White is. And that's just the bottom line. He's a more holistic, more well-rounded linebacker, which is why he's there. And Devin White is in America while the Eagles are in Brazil. But he's not as dynamic a pass rusher. And that is, I don't say it's a problem, but that's part of this equation. You know what I mean? And so if they can't, even with a somewhat suspect, very unproven Washington Commanders offensive line, if because of the lack of toys and the lack of ability to mix things up, like if you're looking at Antoine Winfield Jr. to be maybe your biggest spark as a pass rusher, I love Antoine Winfield Jr., but if your deep safety is one of your spark plugs as a pass in your pass rush attack, that's not a good sign. Just like when Vita Vea led the team in sacks, that's not a good sign. So we'll see, what they do, what they can accomplish, but there's certainly some concern there, and I think that's where the Washington Commanders are going to try to look to do something. Because even if Yaya is getting pressure, simply just roll Jayden Daniels away from Yaya, and that's you're going to help mitigate that a little bit. So that's going to be, I think that's going to be a very big tipping point in this game.
100%. All right. What are the three things that each team needs to do to win in week one? That is coming up next here on a crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker and easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We are wrapping things up here on a crossover Thursday of the Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. And crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. David, you are the visiting team this week. I will defer to you. What are the three things that the Commanders need to do to win this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit all three phases here. I'm gonna go protect Jayden Daniels, and we'll talk about this more, but that also includes Jayden Daniels, protecting Jayden Daniels. Tackle, we just kind of talked about that a little bit, but that's certainly the key. And then make your kicks. Those are the three things. So again, offense, defense, special teams. We're covering all three bases here. Jayden Daniels, that offensive line. Even if the Buccaneers pass rush weaponry doesn't look as sexy on the surface and on paper as it usually does, still an NFL defensive, pass rush, still Todd Bowles and his creativity, his ability to maximize talent wherever he's got it. So you still have to be concerned there. And Jayden himself, look, the conversation has been had. Is he smart enough to not take hits, to slide, to run out of bounds, all that stuff? He is. The question isn't, is he smart enough to do it? The question is he going to do it? Because he also wants to make plays for his team. So I think you got to protect Jayden from a frontline standpoint, but also from a quarterback mindset standpoint as well. Just understand where the best decision is for your team. From a defensive standpoint, tackle. Again, we just talked about guys like Buck Ewing, Rashad White, Mike Evans. We know the yak conversation around Mike Evans, but look, if you miss tackles, anybody's going to get yak, right? Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, certainly a lot of capability there. So this team's got to wrap up and tackle. And I can't tell you that was exactly this team's strongest suit on defense during the preseason. But a lot of like Bobby Wagner didn't play any preseason reps. You know what I mean? So there were some other mitigating factors there that potentially could help this team get better in that aspect. And then kickers. The Commanders had to release their first kicker due to an off the field issue. But then they went through two other kickers, one that came from the UFL and all this, and one that became a free agent, and just not a good history there. Cade York comes in from the Cleveland Browns, a 7th round draft pick trade there. He made all four of his kicks with Cleveland in the preseason. He made all four of his kicks with Washington in the preseason. So that's a much better improvement over what they had been dealing with. So maybe fourth time is the charm for the Washington Commanders. But if you're going to get into field goal range, you need to convert those field goal opportunities into points, because nothing puts a rookie quarterback under pressure faster than a deficit. And if the Buccaneers put up some points, which we do expect the Bucs are going to score, right? And then you're missing out on your scoring opportunities, that's only going to put Jayden Daniels under the gun more, which then trickle down economics or wraparound economics, I guess, wraps us right back to the most important thing on this list. So I think all those three things are going to play a hand in what happens in this game. And if the Commanders do those three things, then they have a chance to pull off the upset.
Yeah, this is not the Commanders team again that drafted number 2 overall in this past draft. This is a completely new look. This is a completely different franchise. So the Bucks are not guaranteed anything in this. This is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be a walk in the park. Jayden Daniels is going to cause problems. That defensive front is going to cause problems. Bucks fans are hoping that they miss some tackles. Let Jalen get into space and make some plays. But yeah, this is gonna be a tough spot for the Buccaneers. So what do they need to do to get a win? Well, first you got to contain Jayden Daniels. You have to attack a very weak secondary or a perceived weak secondary, and then keep Baker's jersey white. Bucks are wearing white jerseys, white pants, making Commanders play in that Florida Heat in those dark uniforms. But look, it all starts with Todd Bowles being able to put the right scheme together to contain a dual threat like Daniels. Is he going to focus a lot on, his edge rushers really just keeping contained, keeping that pocket, up the side so that Vita Vea and Kalijah Casey can collapse the middle and open things up for some blitzers? Is he going to disguise a lot of these blitzes? They kept 11 defensive backs on this roster, all of them. Every single one of them are versatile players. You can blitz Antoine Winfield Jr. You can blitz Jordan Whitehead. You can blitz Tyke Smith and Christian Izien and Zion McCollum out of the slot. You can blitz all these guys. You still have Levante David. He's not quite as dynamic as Devin White was, but he can still get after the quarterback in his own right. Are you going to set up a lot of this to confuse Daniels and get after him early, get that internal clock in his first NFL game sped up a little bit so he starts making some mistakes with all of these disguises? Are you going to just spy him? Is that the solution? Harken back to Derek Brooks versus Michael Vick, those kinds of situations. Is it going to be a committee? Is KJ Britt going to be the spy? Levante, you could have Andy do it. You have a wealth of weapons on the defensive side of the ball. It's about putting those chess pieces in the right spot to make a rookie quarterback very uncomfortable in his first game. And then that secondary, we know Mike is going to be Mike. Jalen McMillan is going to be an absolute stud. I'm looking at Chris Godwin in his return to the slot. You know how dangerous that is. Yeah. Think of Cooper Kupp circa 2021. That's the role envisioned by Liam Cohen for Chris Godwin, because there aren't very many, if any, teams that can match up with Chris Godwin in the slot and actually be close to being as good as he is. He's finally fully healthy. This is going to be, a big opportunity for them. And then keep Baker's jersey white. That defensive front for Washington is fantastic. You have a rookie center. You have a new left guard. You have a second-year right guard. You may have the best left tackle in football. You may have an emerging right tackle, but that interior was a problem for the Buccaneers last year. They need to have gelled. They need to be ready to face one of the most difficult defensive fronts that they are going to face all season long right out of the gate. They are in for a fight. Baker has to be upright so that he can attack that weak secondary and really start to rack up those points.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, like you said, if the Bucks do those things, they certainly should. They're favored in this matchup for a reason. And if they do those three things, then you would assume that they're going to come out with a victory. Of course, as everybody knows, this time of year in Tampa, the weather is probably going to make an appearance in some way, shape, or form. I'm hoping there is not a delay. Although, if there is a delay, I can go across to the Bucks, because this will be my first time in Raymond James on the away side of the press box. It's going to be weird. I have a feeling, I'm going to, those of you who have seen me in person know that I like to eat. I have a feeling I'm going to get to the stairs to go down the press box and make the wrong, turn left to go towards the home side of the press box. At least once I'm going to do it, and then have to be like, oh yeah, my bad. I'm over here with the strangers this time. But you know what? So a little bit of a rain delay wouldn't be terrible for me. I can go say hi to some people I haven't seen in a while and do all those things. So it's going to be super cool. But there's a lot of factors in here. Obviously, it's football, right? So you can't whittle it down to just one thing. But yeah, I think those three things give the Bucks the best chance to pull off the favored victory. But at the same time, on the other side of the ball, man, I'm telling you, Jayden Daniels, brother, he is another animal. I made the comparison that I think if Jayden Daniels' house was on fire, which knock on wood it never is, I think he would walk out of it. I don't think he would run. I think he would walk, and somehow he would still grab all of his valuables, but he would walk out the house and be like, "Man, house is on fire." Like that dude just does not shake. And I actually pitched that analogy to his mother once, and she started laughing. She's like, "That's it." She's like, that's exactly Jayden." I will make a bold prediction. I know it's not part of the program, but I will make a bold prediction. So we did a little bit of talking about Todd Bowles against rookie quarterbacks. The most rushing yards a rookie quarterback has gotten against a Todd Bowles defense is 38 yards since he's arrived at Tampa, I should say. 38 yards. My bold prediction for you here, James Yarko, Jayden Daniels will eclipse that on one carry. I don't know if it's a first carry, but he will have a carry. It could be a scramble. He will have one rush in the game that will eclipse 38 yards. That's a spicy Cheeto bold prediction for every day, as you remember our categories of bold predictions.
All right. Well, then I'll throw out a bold prediction of my own. Jayden Daniels, first career turnover is going to go into the hands of Zion McCollum.
Zion.
You predicted on Locked On Bucks every week last year was going to get his first career takeaway. It's happening in week one. And Zion's going to pick off Jayden Daniels. All right.
If he does, I'm going to give him a press box high five. I'm just going to be like high five in the glass. So we'll have to make sure he knows that I'm doing that for him.
Yeah. I mean, the man bought a jugs machine and then taught his brand new bride how to operate it so that he could work on his hands.
It's about that.
You got to love the dedication from both of them.
Yeah.
All right. That is going to do it for this crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. Please make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on and on your favorite podcast platforms. Make sure that you are following on Twitter. I am James Yarko at JYarko_Bucks. He is David Harrison at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we thank you so much for joining us right here on a crossover Thursday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.